This video is for practicing drawing arches. So I'm going to start by drawing a two-point perspective box. It's actually two cubes stacked on each other. So I'm using my knowledge of two-point perspective to draw these boxes. There are formulas that you can use for drawing boxes in two-point perspective, but I think the best thing is to learn how to do it from your memory and from your experience and from understanding the rules of perspective. I'm just marking a spot there for my line to go to. Now I'm putting the back edges on, and I'm using again my experience, my eye. All those lines that are defining the back planes, the width and the depth, are going to be going to vanishing points. All of the height lines will be vertical. Now I'm marking that center of that face of the box. That's where I'm going to put my arch. What I'm doing here is simply giving myself a little bit of a margin so that my arch doesn't go right up to the top of my cube. I'll do that for both of my cubes. Remember, I've got one cube stacked on another. Now I'm going to draw that axis line. The first axis line I drew is incorrect. It wasn't going to the vanishing point, so I'm going to correct that. I notice it, I say, oh, I didn't do that correctly. So now I'm going to fix it. I'll take out that other line. Very important that that axis line follows to the same vanishing point. And I'm extending that axis line so that it touches the edge of that box, that inner box. Now what I want to do is make sure that I have a line that's perpendicular to that line. Remember, that's a really important part of using the T. Now I'm just making my marks on the paper. So now, again, I want to follow exactly the rules of ellipses, which are that they're symmetrical from side to side, first of all. They're also rounded on the ends, and they're also widest in the center. What I want to do now is I'm not making my arch quite so deep. I want it to be narrower so I can see where the other line would be behind the back line of the arch. I'm just creating a little gap there between those two parts of the box. Now I'm just tightening it up a little bit. I'm ready now to really work on my arches. I've got my ellipses, and you can notice they're not exactly the same because one's lower than the other. It has a slightly different angle. Just cleaning up a little bit. So now what I'm doing is I'm drawing from the base of the ellipse up over the arch of it, where it meets that line is going to be where that back line goes back. So I'm erasing out so I can see it just a little better. I'm using that back edge to see where my line will go. Now here's where I want to repeat basically the same arch. So I'm using my tracing paper, but I have to move it up. So you can see it's going to get cut off there. I'm just lifting up that tracing paper a little bit. It's not quite a straight line. You see it's arched a little bit at the top. Now the bottom line is more obscured because it's more angled. So I don't see quite as much of that little tiny bit of an arch at the top of that line. So arches follow the perspective of the boxes that they're in. Again, you do not want to just make a straight up and down ellipse. That won't give you that sense of roundness. It'll look like a flatter shape. So use the perspective of the box itself to determine the angle that the ellipse is going to follow.